it really does take a team effort. There's several people doing different missions to make this work. So, Rhonda, I believe, are we live?
You're live.
We're live on Facebook, and we're up on Zoom, and we're here in person, and away we go. So, Sana, can you call the roll?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Dan Garrett,
Here.
Sally Lowry,
Here.
Kristen,
Here.
Danielle Mean,
Here.
Charlene De Los Santos,
Here.
David Asbury,
Here.
Christine Witten,
Present.
Stacy Hampton,
Here.
Alicia Foreman,
I'm here.
Carol Williams, Evan Stewart,
Here.
Jamie Good. I'm trying to find this Casey Meyerhofer. Cassie, sorry. Cassie Meyerhofer.
And I'm so disturbed because I'm trying to do something. I'm not getting
Ron Ositow. Isaiah Lopez.
Present.
Ben Kamala.
Here.
Joseph Baez. Dominique Baez. Greta Johnson.
I'm here.
Eric Daniel. Sean Cardwell.
Here.
Eric Annis. Brian Murphy.
Here.
Shane Lancer.
Here.
Annalise. Jacqueline Bell. Elizabeth Hayes.
Here.
Seth Rosenthal.
Here.
Alan Graham.
Here.
Shakira Javi. Lori Sweet.
Here.
Justin Farmer.
Present.
Sharon Kiley. Megan Goslin. Yasmin Small.
Here.
Hi, Justin. Michael Lockett.
Here.
Melba Nadine.
Present.
Felicia Vaughn.
Here.
Jack Smith.
Here.
Tracy Bowen.
Here.
Dave Hannon.
Here.
Diane Hoffman.
Here.
Chris Ashley.
Here.
Rhonda Caldwell.
Here.
Jen Sacco. April Bowman. Carmen Black. Here. Miriam Khan. George Livingston.
Here.
Betsy Rosenblum.
Here.
Tamika Park. Here. Nancy Hill. Graziella. How do I say that? Graziella. Travis Woodward.
Here.
LaShonda Howard.
Here.
Karen Bivens.
Present.
you're just taking a picture. Thank you for doing that with me. We have a quorum.
Very good. So now that we're in person, we all got a little extra work, right? Very good. So we are going to jump right into our nominations. And for chair, I'm going to turn the meeting over to our vice chair, Lane.
Good evening. I'm going to stand up just because you can hear me better. Do we have any nominations for chair of the Hamden Democratic Town Committee? Yes, Karen.
I nominate Sean Grace for chair of the Democratic Town Committee. Sean Grace has served as chair for DTC for the last term, and he served as well. He's worked hard building relationships with our state delegation and other DTCs across the state. He brings a wealth of knowledge and supports our DTCs, and he is a great resource in helping all of us get elected to our seats now. And his leadership was instrumental in campaigning for our Slate and our mayor to get elected last November. And so he answers the call, he knocks the doors, and he does the work.
Could I ask the people on Zoom, could you hear that?
I'll go ahead and repeat it.
Okay. Let's check it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a second? I second the nomination. I second the nomination because I believe we are fortunate to find ourselves with great leadership. I can tell you as a newcomer in politics, how welcoming Sean was in terms of mentoring and being accessible. He's just provided us great leadership at a critical time. I know that people were looking for change, and I feel like when I look across this room, when I look at the Slate A, there was change, and I'm really excited about that. And so Sean is regarded as one of the most respected DTC chairs in the state, and I believe we are lucky to have him. And for this reason, I'm happy to second his nomination.
Thank you. Do we have any other nominations for chair of the Hamden Democratic Town Committee? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, nominations are closed, and since there are no other nominations, I believe by acclamation, Sean is our chair. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I'm proud to serve another term as chair. I think that we have done an awful lot this past couple of years in terms of having our first platform, a very progressive, forward-thinking platform, and redoing our bylaws and having a code of conduct. But also the most important thing is the way we came together as Democrats in this town. We had hard-fought victories that all of us here worked for. But then after that, what we saw a pattern, many years in a row where there was splintering among Democrats. But instead, for the first time, I think in anybody's memory, at our caucuses, we didn't have a single challenge at any of our 9 caucuses, and that is kind of unheard of in Hamden. And then following that, there was some assumption that, okay, well, look out for primaries, they're all coming, and that did not happen. We stayed united, and so I think Hamden Democrats right now are the strongest they have probably ever been. And so I am proud to work with each of you to make that happen. Obviously, we have a whole lot more work to do to keep on widening out our party, accepting new people in. One thing that I think I want to point out is this is a different DTC than the one from 2 years ago. About 1/3 of our members, as of right now, are brand new members. And so, but it was done through cooperation. It was done by inviting people in, right? And so it was done the right way. And we're going to keep on doing that. We're going to keep on bringing people into the party and getting stronger as we go. So thank you. I will now we will take nominations for vice chair, and I will recognize Megan Goslin for purposes of a nomination.
It's John, congratulations. It's my pleasure to nominate Elaine Duff for vice chair of our DTC. And Elaine has been a tremendous leader in our community and in our party for decades. Elaine has helped me so much with our politics, but also about the civic engagement. For example, some of her positions are president of the Springline Civic Association, president of multiple different PTAs. I also really appreciate the professional background and skills that she brings to 2022 as a social worker and former special education teacher. Those skills are needed now more than ever. And personally, I will say that I've never seen someone work harder than Elaine. She works so hard on every campaign. She doesn't let a surgery, the weather, or a pandemic suffer. So I think we have really good hands with Elaine.
Thank you. And for purposes of a second, I will recognize Alexa,
I second Elaine's nomination.
a member of few words. Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Hearing none, by acclamation, Elaine is our vice chair. Congratulations.
I really appreciate this honor of being your vice chair. I have appreciated working with everybody, meeting new people, working with people that we brought onto the Democratic Town Committee. I very much appreciate working with Sean because he's a very good leader, and that's helpful for the vice chair. At least I don't have to take over the meetings too often, or maybe ever, hopefully. I feel like I can be the steady hand in this tumultuous times we're in. And I know all of you are steady, and that's what's good. I don't feel like I'm having to work with a group of people who have different ideas and are going in different directions. This is nice. We're cohesive to some, we all have our individual ideas, but we're cohesively moving forward. As Sean said, we are engaged in with purpose, and I like working with that. So thank you so much for your endorsement and your vote. I appreciate it.
All right, congratulations, Elaine. All right, for purposes. Now I will accept nominations for recording secretary, and for purposes of the nomination, I'll recognize Brian.
I nominate Sana Shah to be recording secretary. Sana is a Garrison, brilliant star, progressive, and shining stars in our town and our state. I first met Sana 2 years ago during the DTC caucuses in the 4th District. And unlike this past January 2020, it was a bit of a coup. It's easy to say she was part of the rising tide that year, which had started in other districts, so previous 2 cycles. But those of us that were there saw something different. The room was boiling over with the old guard trying to stave off the rabble-rousers and the upstarts, and everything was in contention. It took an hour just to decide how we would cast our votes with so many people in such disagreement. But when each candidate had 60 seconds to introduce themselves before the first of many rounds of voting would follow, the whole room immediately agreed on one thing. This woman is talented, and she's going places, and she's going through in the first round, which she did, the only of the first time member. If anyone was surprised in that room, no one at CT Voices for Children was, and no one in Hartford was either. That's where her work takes her, at the Capitol. Everyone there knows Sana's the one to speak to. Somehow, every conversation I have when I walk in on a state politician, it always somehow makes its way to Sana. That's because anyone with any savvy knows that if you want to be on the right side of an issue, you speak with Sana. If you need to know all the reasons why, you speak with Sana. If you want to sound intelligent, informed, and moral on things like equity in schools, or criminal reform, you speak with Sana. And if you just want to be cool. We're so very privileged to have someone like Sana, so talented and brilliant in our town. As part of this humble organization, I can't wait to continue to have her open up our meetings with such radiance, and we should all feel very privileged for that.
Thank you. And for purposes of a second, I recognize Rhonda.
I second the nomination for Sana Shah for Recording Secretary. She's a fierce advocate for children and progressives in Connecticut. We're honored to have a woman of color like her to represent us at the front table in our very diverse DTC. So I'm honored to second your nomination tonight, and I hope everybody will support her.
Thank you, Rhonda. Are there any other nominations for Recording Secretary? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Sana Shah is elected by acclamation. Congratulations.
Wow, thank you, everyone. That was so fun. So I'm gonna use my statements today to show solidarity with the Ukrainian people. And I want to make a few remarks. We know that this unprovoked attack on Ukraine undermines democracy and humanity and can cause devastating consequences for Ukraine and the rest of the world. Many of you know that my dad is Pakistani. He came out to the first election and did some poll standing for me, and it was really an amazing moment. And many of you have heard that story, and I love how we united and we built and we moved power, and we now look like the town that we represent, and we have the values to make sure that this stays an inclusive town which advances racial and economic justice always. And I'm honored to continue to be part of that movement. So again, many of you heard that story about me being Pakistani, about being a target of vitriol post-September 11th, becoming involved with activism for self-preservation, and then working for the liberation of others as well. That's my story. But there's a story today that I want to share, and I'm in an interesting moment of mine that many of you do not know, and that is my mother. So my grandmother from my mother's side is actually Ukrainian. And I think there's something about oppression that makes identities feel so much more salient. Throughout my life, it was always that I was Pakistani American, and the past week I've also become Ukrainian American. And there's a part of me that feels so seen, but also a part of me that still feels so invisible. I have seen the way the entire world has united in support of Ukraine, and it's beautiful, and it's affirming. And it's a moment that we all should be proud of because Ukrainians are brave, and they are just incredible human beings. But we also know that if Black and brown people resist, we're not going to be looked as brave, we're going to be looked at as violent. And so we have to see the humanity in everyone, because that is what creates stories around people. And so I say this all to say that I hope that we continuously see the humanity in each of us, that not only do we continue to promote policies that advance economic and racial justice, but we also are different people than those who were in those who we ran against. Like we have to continuously embody ethical excellence and not just promote different policies, but be different people in that. And I just want to encourage everyone to always meet each other at a higher level of compassion, hold each other accountable, because love is accountability. And yeah, I love y'all, and I'm happy to be part of this again.
Now we will open it up for nominations for corresponding secretary, and for purposes of the nomination, I will recognize Lori.
I promised you all in July that I'll keep things short and sweet. I'm going to maintain that campaign promise. It's my honor to be here tonight to nominate Councilman Osmani for corresponding secretary. He's done a beautiful job of keeping us all in the know, even some of us who weren't part of the DTC, inviting us in. And I am just really happy to be here in support of you, Abdul, for another term doing your job so well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, for purposes of the second, I recognize Ben.
Yeah, I second for Abdul. He's an awesome guy. He tough on engagement, and he's got it. He is out there fighting for tenants, fighting for people in District 3, all Hamden. So I think he's awesome.
Great, thank you, Ben. All right, are there any other nominations for corresponding secretary? Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, Abdul wins by acclamation. Congratulations.
I'll try to keep this a little short and sweeter than my first and second. But I'm thankful to once again be your corresponding secretary, this time as a voting member of the DTC. And as I look at a DTC that's now 1/3 full of new people, it kind of reminds me of how it felt, which kind of starting to feel like a long time ago. I got involved in all of this work when I was about 14. Now 20. So yeah, when I really think about that, it really reminds me and inspires me that not only do we bring in new people in our party, we look to bring people across all races, all ages, sexual orientations, and truly build the inclusive, beloved party and community that we all want to create here in Vietnam. So thank you.
All right, I will now accept nominations for treasurer, and for purposes of a nomination, I will recognize Kareem.
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to nominate Lushonda Howard for treasurer. Lushonda is a veteran, a Navy veteran. She's majored in criminal justice and public policy. She's an adjunct professor for government and criminal justice. I've seen her at work when she's committed to doing something. She is 1,000% committed. I had some conversation with her, and as I was contemplating about running again, just had some conversation with her, and we talked about it. And I just think that she would be a perfect fit for this DTC. She's committed, she's accessible, she's willing to do the work, and she's vision-oriented. And I think those are the things that we need in this role. So with that, I nominate Lushonda Howard.
And for purposes of the second, I recognize Tracy Bones.
Good evening, everyone. Lushonda comes with the highest recommendation from our outgoing treasurer, who we all hold in such high regard. So it's an easy call with that recommendation for me to second the nomination of Lushonda Howard.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations for treasurer? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, Lushonda wins by acclamation. Congratulations. Why don't you come on up? Don't be shy.
She's like, see ya.
I wasn't expecting this. I just want to say that I am honored to even be recommended for this position. I'm excited to work with the executive board and all of the Hamden DCC members. This is my very first official meeting, and I'm sitting here. But I want to thank you all. I'm excited to learn
think you're gonna find that treasurer is a very easy job, takes no more than a couple minutes.
Not
Thank you for taking it on. All right, so right now, we are going to break into districts, hopefully for a very short time. Let's try to keep it as quick as we can, and then we'll come back out and I'd like your picks for district chairs and also a member of the finance committee. So one member of finance committee, one district chair per district. So once you all huddle up, and we'll get that
You
done.
want to do the same as before?
Yeah, let's give it 7 minutes.
Yeah, we'll do the same. Yeah, Carmen's over there. Yeah.
Anybody on Zoom, if you want to call your district chairs, you can do that. Kind of in there. Oh, hello, hello.
Hi. Hey, girl, hey, Bart. You don't have to talk with that, we'll stay the same. I'm just gonna mix it up. And so I'm gonna call Debbie, my friend that lives on my street, and see if she's a member of the team. And then the next meeting, we'll have Debbie be our representative. I don't know if I'm gonna
Who are we missing, Jen and Faye?
Jen, Faye, and Mary. Yeah, I know. I could get they want to get well, you're working. It's working. Spark. George, second. One step closer. Keep going. You're telling me.
What's it? No, I think we're on. I think we're going live.
Yeah, so, all right, so watch what you say.
But it's really great.
Change, and this is what we expect. Right, you don't tell them the expectations that I don't know where. Now they're new and now I'm behind. Yeah, it was fine. It was fine, whatever.
Downstairs.
Good luck.
Yes, absolutely.
I literally put up a chair and everything. I was feeling so now this the attendance gave me what we can't take this away from me.
They said it doesn't work as well.
county get that too, but I mean, for the students, like, it's better for them. Oh, for sure. So, I get it. It's like, you know, culture thing. You add, you only need it when it comes to your business. But what are you gonna do? Until you work for yourself. I know.
Hey, Rocio, how are you? Good. Yeah, the one who's meeting this week. Alright. Can you text me email address and I'll send you the link now? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yes. Have you done any great applications? Okay. Yeah. That sounds good. Text me your email address. Perfect.
All right, everyone, I'm going to call the meeting back. You guys take your seats. All right, will the first district please report out?
Hi, my name is Kristen Danvers, and for our president of the first district, I'd like to nominate Christine Whitten. Christine was our leader during COVID, during truly unprecedented times. She did a great job doing that. She's a consensus builder, and on a personal note, when I was new to the DTC, she really welcomed me to the group and helped get out the vote in the first district, and I'm confident that she'll continue to do a really great job as the leader of the first district.
Great, congratulations.
And I'd like to second the nomination for Christine Whitten. We have a pretty new first district with 4 new members, and she will do a phenomenal job bringing us all together and to make it a great first district.
All right, congratulations. Would you like to say anything?
I would just like to say hi, I'm Christine. And I had the honor of helping get David as Derek on the Board of Ed and Kristen as our legislative council person, and that was one of my, I felt a responsibility, but I also felt it was a wonderful responsibility. We have 2 talented people representing us, so thank you, and we're delighted to have new people.
Thank you. And do you have a member for our finance committee?
I do, Charlene.
All right, thank you. All right, second district, you're up.
short, we're going to be nominating Casey Hampton for here for the second.
Great. And thank you, congratulations.
And Tanisha will be continuing as finance.
Great. You want to say anything, or you good?
I'm good,
All right.
thank you.
Third district, your turn. Yeah.
All right, great. So for our chair, we'll be having Eric Daniels, who I'm excited to bring on.
Woohoo!
Eric does an interview about giving back to the community, assistant pastor, and I'm, excited to see some of the good work and great things that he can bring to the third district. And serving on finance, we'll have Ben Kamo, who is, ready to hop on and contribute to the best efforts to our DCC and make sure that we're the best DCC that we can possibly be. And they're both an example of why we should always, be so steadfast in our outreach to members and people within the broader community, as they're both people that I've met practically 2 to 3 years ago, actually knocking on doors. And that just proves the importance of constantly reaching out to community members that maybe might not be a part of the process and giving them the opportunity to be a part of the process, because after all, that's what democracy is.
Great, congratulations. Fourth district, your turn.
Hi, everyone. We nominate Glenn Murphy as chair for the fourth district. I will give a whole spiel. We all know the. And as finance, I'll be stepping in.
All right, fantastic. Thank you all. All right, fifth district.
Hi, we selected Lori Sweet for fifth district chair. As most of you know, she's an active councilman doors for the last 8 years. And we're anxious to go forward with Lori and our leadership. Finance,
Working on it.
we're working on it.
All right, thank you. Okay, yes. All right, anyone listening to Zoom online, please check your text. The sixth district is trying to finalize their vote. Thank you. All right, we're going to go to the seventh district.
That's me. My name is Dave Hannon, and I am happy to stand up and tell everyone else that the 7th District has picked Tracy Bowens to remain as the chair of the 7th District. Tracy is fierce and steadfast and understanding and caring, and most of all, and this is no shade to you guys, but it keeps meetings short and to the point. And finance.
All right, fantastic. Congrats, Tracy. All right. Yep. All right, now we're going to go to the 8th district.
How's everyone doing? So we chose to continue with Rhonda Caldwell as our chair. As you all know, she's an absolute rock star, and we couldn't be happier with her. So we'd like her to be our chair again. And for the finance committee, we've chosen to stay with George Levinson, and he's an absolute wealth of knowledge, and we're happy to have him continue on in that position as well.
Great, thank
Thanks.
you. And now we're going to go back to the 6th. Who wants to report? I just said Brandon. Who wants to report out?
Oh, I'll report out. The 6th district has nominated Megan Goslin. As you all know, she is an outstanding person. So we only pick outstanding people for our chair. And she's really good. She does everything, and she's organized. She's very organized. Our finance is Felicia Bond. She's a relatively new member on our committee, and she's going to do great because there's a whole bunch of people that she knows that are on the finance committee and that she's going to have fun. So thank you very much for waiting for us.
Thank you. And finishing up is the 9th.
Good evening, everybody. We're going to keep Karen Bivens on as chair,
And to make the pledge, I'm gonna step in for finance because he stole Sean from us.
Congratulations, everyone. All right, now, we don't have minutes, right?
I'm sorry.
We don't have minutes, right?
We do have it.
Oh, okay, good. Want to share your thing up there?
You can share.
I'm gonna say yes.
Yes.
They're also in your email, so you can look in your phones as well. And once someone is ready, we'll accept a motion to accept the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, all right, that passes.
I did. Tracy second. Tracy, you seconded, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. All right, let's pop up the treasurer's report.
Oh, I just lost my dog.
Oh.
Yeah, I thought because we had this in paper.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We have it in paper, and everyone has it in their email. So whenever, there's some up here if you want to look at them.
Can I just read it out?
And you could, yeah, do a quick read out.
Okay, checking balance, at the beginning of January 1 was $816. Distribution of $525.66 for, which was a debit card of $500 and an electronic fee of $25. And the checking ending book balance was $290.34. I think we need the finance people to help us out. Very well done, though.
Thank you. All right, let's have the motion to.
So moved.
Good. A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, passes. Great. All right, I'm going to recognize Rhonda Caldwell now for, we have a resolution that was sent in your email, and it's also up here if anyone wants to look at it. But she will present it here, and we're going to share the screen as well.
I offer this resolution today, especially from the words from Sana Shah regarding Ukraine and democracy in other parts of the world. We live in one of the awesome places on the planet where we have a democracy, but it is currently under attack, and everybody's aware of that. State of Connecticut is one of the most restrictive states for voting in our state and our union. And we would hope tonight that there's a resolution that we have sent around, and everyone would be able to support this resolution from our DTC and sign on to the letter, which is banning foreign spending on state ballot referendums, Connecticut Voting Rights Act, which would give, Black, brown, and indigenous people additional protections against.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing there's no sound for Zoomers.
Uh-oh, the Zoomers can't hear?
It says it's disabled when I'm sharing the screen.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you'll
Hear me
share
now?
the screen. Yeah.
Okay. So we're asking the DTC to consider this resolution today to support expansion of voting rights in Connecticut. One of those items are banning foreign spending on state ballot referendums. The Connecticut Voting Rights Act to expand additional protections against voter suppression to Black, brown, and indigenous people. And also consider a ranked choice voting bill as well, to create a task force to study the implementation of that in our state. Connecticut, again, as I said earlier, has the most restrictive voting opportunities in our state. We need to expand the access to the ballot box in Connecticut. So we're hoping that the Hamden DTC tonight will support this resolution, and you can support the General Assembly. This is going to be up for public comment this Friday. So if you're interested in signing up to either send in written testimony or sign on to give verbal testimony at the hearing on Friday. We would love your support. As I said earlier, our democracy is under attack in our country. All over our union are members of our communities all over that are trying to restrict access to the ballot box. We would like in Connecticut to expand access to the ballot box. One of which is a very important, on November of this year, we have a very important opportunity to vote on a referendum question regarding early voting. We want to encourage everyone to say, yes, we would like to do early voting. It doesn't make sense to think we're going to get 3 million plus people through the ballot, through the polls in, 16 hours? So we have to expand voting rights in our state. The voting in Connecticut and voting in general is the backbone of our democracy, and without access to the ballot, our democracy does not work. So I hope that we can get everybody's support tonight for this resolution to expand these voting rights in our state.
All right, thank you, Rhonda. Any discussion?
You will all be receiving, like, in the next, like, hour, all of this, a few of the things that Ron was talking about, and how you could, more so than actually voting, be a part of the process, attend these forums, and also write your legislation.
Awesome, thank you.
Also, just to note in the chat, it's better for everyone on Zoom if we speak at the microphone.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Rhonda.
All right, hearing no discussion, I will accept a motion to vote on this, to move this. Anybody?
So
All right,
Second.
good. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
No. All right, any abstain, any opposed? Any opposed? No? Any abstain? All right, it passes, great. All right. So we have a number of candidates, either running outright or exploring a run for Secretary of the State in this room and on Zoom. So we're going to, we'll start by order that I've seen them. So the first one that I saw was Hilda Santiago on Zoom. So I'm going to recognize her to speak to us. And so Hilda, you can talk whenever you're ready.
Okay, thanks. How many minutes do I have?
You got a couple of minutes.
Oh my goodness. Okay, great. I'll try to be brief. Well, thank you for letting me be a part of this meeting today in Hamden. I just want to say and recognize Representative Wiellander, Representative Porter, also your Representative Elliott, and also your President Pro Tem Martin Looney. And I have a couple of friends there in Hamden, Sarah Gallagher and Justin. And I am a state representative from the great city of Hamden. I've been a state legislator now for 10 years. Before that, I was a city councilor for 2 terms, and our terms are 4 years in the city of Meredith. Before that, I was on the Meriden Democratic Town Committee. In Meriden, we have a tradition that when you are on the town committee and then you get elected, you get off the town committee so you can give other folks a chance to participate in the process of nominating and doing fundraising and all that good stuff that the town committee does. So being on the town committee is when I really learned how to get involved in campaigns. My son was a special needs child back in 1st grade, and he had a very tough time trying to get services in the Meriden, through the Meriden Board of Ed. So I was a person that was fighting people. I was always at the meetings, helping parents, doing the translations for PPTs, and then I was asked to be on the Democratic Town Committee. So that's where I learned how to do campaigning, making phone calls, grassroots, door knocking, working with candidates to get elected through for local local offices, the Board of Ed, City Council, the state rep, and federal. And that's where politics really starts. And I did go to, I was on the city council back in 1996, 97, and then I ran again in 2005, and was one of the first women on the city council, and the first Puerto Rican city councilor ever on the city council in Meriden. In America, the right to vote is a fundamental freedom, and because we are the leading democracy in the world, our election system ought to be completely fair, free, and accessible. And that's why I got involved in the local town committee in Meriden. Working my way up through the system, I was a Head Start director in Meriden. I also ran a homeless shelter. After that, I did housing counseling, and I also worked at the hospital doing healthcare issues with the community and being a community liaison. And then I also went to work in 2007, I went to work for Congressman Chris Murphy at that time, and now Senator, and I became the Deputy Director of Case Management for his office. Why I want to run for Secretary of the State? I have been on the GAA committee now for 3 terms. I have voted on many issues that have to do with voting. As someone that's always out there registering folks through the DTC and even taking out people to make sure they voted, and also did babysitting, get rights to folks to the polls, because that's your voice. And involved in local politics in Meriden, there weren't a lot of people that looked like me involved in the system. I also want to, last year in the legislature, we voted to put the referendum of early voting on the ballot this year, because we do not have, we have to change the state constitution. That's why the referendum is there for 2022. And a lot of community outreach has to be done throughout the state. I have a 10-year relationship with many of the legislators in the chamber, up in the Senate and in the House, so I can get their trust and their help in making sure that early voting comes to fruition. And we have to make sure that when it passes, hopefully it will pass in this election, because this was already tried back in 2014. There's a lot of community engagement that we have to do in the state of Connecticut in order to get this referendum passed. We are one of 6 states, including New Hampshire, that does not have early voting. The no excuse absentee ballot is also, we didn't get enough votes to pass that, but that will be brought up next year in 2023. And one of the other things that I'm also interested in is with security, voting security, and updating the technology throughout the state. That would be one of my other goals throughout the state of Connecticut. And my third communication, to make sure that I'm being inclusive with the town clerks and the registrar of voters, and make sure that because they're the ones that are at the front line, and they're the ones that are interacting with the public, they should be the first ones to know and to be trained as to what's going on with the election process in the state of Connecticut. And that communication is early. Right now, they meet through with the Secretary of the State every 6 months with one of the staffers. I plan to do that personally and meet with them, and that should be something that we should be meeting every month the first year that I'm in office, because we have to get a lot of issues through the legislature for next year, and hopefully with the input from the community and the public, with the public hearings and the legislators, we will be able to pass the early voting and decide how many days we're going to do. I am also a graduate of Southern Connecticut State University. My trade is in teaching, and eventually I went into social services, and then I basically became a politician, because I always felt that my voice wasn't being heard, people weren't listening, and the only way and being on the town committee and basically opening that door for other folks like me that would be able to have a voice and be at the table to make those decisions. Again, like I said, a democracy is an issue even with Ukraine. It's an issue with Ukraine now, and that's what they're fighting for. And we've had a very similar insurrection here, January 6th. But because there were people that knew that the fundamental right to vote and the fundamental right to make sure that our votes are counted and we had a president, that's why the system was saved on January 6th. I'm open to questions, if anybody has any questions.
All right, thank you for joining us, Representative Santiago. Before we take questions, we're going to move through all of our guests, everyone has a chance to speak. So now we're going to recognize Alder Darrell Brackeen.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I just want to thank you for the invitation. I'm Alderman Darrell Brackeen, hailing from the great city of New Haven. Although Hamden has a special place in my heart as well, so the great town of Hamden. It is a heartbeat of my life's family, and truly, actually, the foundation of my values and faith started in Hamden, 834 Dixwell Avenue, a church named Faith Temple Revival Center, where the first African-American woman clergy person established a church. Her name was Wilhelmina Redmond. And it was through the community and the work and her life and legacy that I was able to ingrain myself here in the town of Hamden. Actually, I had my first job in the Whitney Center in the kitchen as a dishwasher at the senior center. I really knew that voting rights was something that needed to be imperative to my life because of my parents, two of whom, my dad, Darrell Brackeen, who was a Hamden resident on Twin Brick Road, and my mom, Jill. They found themselves homeless on a park bench in Gulf Street Park, New Haven in the late 80s. And on that day, they happened to stumble upon a Labor's Day parade that was being hosted by SEIU 1199, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Al Sharpton. And my dad didn't know what to do, so they participated in that day's experience. On that day, he was able to actually gain a union paid job and go through that training. And he eventually became a chief steward in SEIU 1199. So I often say I was born on a picket line. So in terms of my exposure to politics, it was through my faith and my family. And unfortunately, he passed away 3 months ago. And I was very grateful to Mayor Garrett and Town Clerk Mickens and all of your leadership for sending a note of grace and thanks. Our family sincerely needed it at that time. My stepmother, Shatina Brackeen, is also a Hamden poll worker. She's been working the polls for the past 18 years. Why is any of that important? It's because we need a Secretary of State candidate who understands and understands the fabric of this town. And it's not foreign to me what the needs of Hamden are. It is the most diverse town in this state. Now, through the leadership of this DTC, the most diverse Democratic Town Committee in the state, the most progressive, the best platform that I've ever seen. The transparency that is displayed here in Hamden is a model for the Democratic Party across the state. Yes. And that's thanks to each and every one of you. Some of you I've known my whole life, others of you are very new, and you're just getting to know me. So the truth is, we have to bring the hope and trust back to this political space. The facts are, individuals in our community just simply do not trust politics as usual anymore. And the reason why most of you all are here is because they trusted you. You built that trust over the last 8 years I know the story back in 2015, where many of you began to challenge the status quo. And because of that hard work, we're all seeing the fruits of the labor today. Now, I could go through the litany of my background as a nonprofit executive, actually serving as the Hamden North Haven YMCA executive director. Had to see some tumultuous times there, a declining building, dilapidated for that matter. But there was one council person who actually took my call to figure out what we could do in terms of developing and redeveloping, enhancing that building, and that was then councilperson Garrett, now Mayor Garrett. And I want to thank you because no one was listening. We service hundreds of kids in the community, and we had to begin to get creative about the needs of the residents. It's things like this that matter. The role of the Secretary of State has in two divisions, electoral and business. I studied at Fairfield University, political science and history. Went on to Fordham University. My background is in education as a social studies teacher. But my wife and I are serial entrepreneurs, started a wine brand label and a host of other things. So we understand what the plight of a small business person looks like. In terms of elections, look, I got the call of the Biden-Harris campaign to be a part of the state leadership team in running the statewide elections for 2020 here in the Connecticut leadership team, as well as sent out to Iowa, to the front lines of Georgia, to the front lines of South Carolina, and going onward. Then they called me back after the election to serve on the transition team to focus on voting rights and education. These are the issues that are core to our community, and we need someone in that role who understands that intimately. So we can talk further. I reached out to some of you all. You can feel free to visit my website at brackeen4ct.org, and I would be remiss without kind of shouting out my treasurer, Rhonda Caldwell, who has been serving almost since August to the very launch. Hamden is in the fabric of this campaign, and it's my hope that I can talk with you all personally, over coffee or Zoom. Call me 203-606-0846, and let's get to work to ensure that we have a progressive agenda at the statewide level as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Darrell. All right, next up is Director of Public Health for the City of New Haven, Maritza Bond. Welcome.
I'm fatigued, so I'm going to stand over here. So good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm going to try not to talk at you because you've been here all evening. I just want to thank Sean and the DTC officers and the members for being here tonight. And it is with great pleasure to know that you have a great mayor also, and a great delegation that I can name this evening, but I will take up my few minutes that I have. As you know, I serve as the Director of Public Health for the City of New Haven, and it is with great pleasure and honor to be able to work alongside with Mayor Justin Elliger at the front lines to be able to ensure that we protect the lives of individuals in our city. But really what's important is the journey that really inspires us to go into public service. Many of us go into a specific career path because there's a motivator. And for me, my motivation to go into public service was really my experience in growing up in Fairhaven section of the city of New Haven, where my grandmother and my uncle raised me. And I saw firsthand a lot of social determinant issues with violence being rampant, different health issues affecting the community, and really lack of access to different services. And really, that served as my pursuit to public health. I really was the first one to go to college. I didn't know how to navigate it. I sort of stumbled across taking that introduction of public health course and was very grateful that for the last 20 years, I've been able to serve in that capacity. However, although New Haven served as my motivation, I actually started my career in public service in the Valley area and then spent a decade in Eastern Connecticut and then running statewide initiatives where I worked closely with legislators to advocate for a number of different legislative bills over the last 2 decades of my career. So this right here is definitely not a highlight. It is my real gray hair. I get all the young people telling me that my highlight is so pretty, and I'm like, this is actually my natural hair. So for me, that same reason to going into public service the last 2 decades served as an avenue for me to explore a run for Secretary of the State. And I am meeting with individuals like yourself every single night. I literally was multitasking and was out in the car. And Matt Lesser are literally following each other everywhere because he just left the same meeting as me and somehow is already here. It's for me meeting individuals and really hearing what individuals want to see different from the Secretary of the State's office. And we can't talk about policies from the top down. We need to make sure that we're talking about policies that have implications for the people that actually have to do the work. And I've been listening to local registrars as well as town clerks across Connecticut, and the same message is clear. We need to do better. We need to collaborate. We have to serve as a convener. And I have done that in my role as a government executive management in 2 large cities when oftentimes I agree, people do not trust government. And in this pandemic, one thing that was clear is that people did not trust government in our response to COVID. And we had to pivot and quickly identify community leaders to ensure that our message got out and we got through that misinformation that is out there. And so I hope to gain your support in that effort. I also want to support businesses and reinstate a small business unit as Lieutenant Governor had when she was served as the Secretary of the State to ensure that women-owned businesses and minority businesses are being supported at the state level. Because as you know, the Secretary of the State does not just have a responsibility to protecting our democracy, that is vital and it's important, but we also have to support a major function of that department, which is also businesses, which is the first stop. I also want to ensure that I support and create a one-stop shop, which was a legislative bill that was introduced by Carolyn Simmons years ago, and I want to be able to support that effort as well. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you again for your attention and for giving me the opportunity to be here this evening.
Thank you. Next up, we have Senator Matt Lesser.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you to everyone. Congratulations on your big election tonight. It's great to see Mayor Garrett, to see 2 of my colleagues in the state Senate, Senator Cabrera and my boss, Senator Looney, as well as Representative Wiellander and Representative Porter on the screen over there. Hi, Super Robin, and just be with all of you again. I've been to the Hamden DTC before, and I'm going to keep coming back over and over and over again until you get rid of me. But no, it's just so. I think the reason why you see so many people focused on this office and so looking at why who the next Secretary of State is going to be is because there's really a crisis right now. There's a crisis in democracy, and we all know it at some level. And as Hilda mentioned, we're seeing it on TV with Russian tanks moving across Ukraine because the idea of democracy is so threatened, right? We're seeing it all across the country. This is the issue, and that's why there are 900 of us who are really focused on this office, because without it, all of the other issues we care about, whether it's racial justice, whether it's criminal justice reform, whether it's, as for Travis, it's workers' rights, whether it is the right to choose or healthcare, what I've focused on, none of it matters. None of it amounts to more than a hill of beans if we don't have a functioning democracy. And we have a crisis right now because our Republican friends and our unaffiliated friends, lots of people in this country, lots of people in this state are losing confidence in our ballot box as being the place where we resolve our differences. And what do we do about that? That's not a thing that just automatically happens. That is a consensus that we create as a society. We were up at the Capitol today. I was with our colleagues, and we were passing legislation. I introduced, announced a new bill that I introduced last year with my colleagues in the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus, and I see Rhonda here, and she was a huge champion last year. We're hoping that Connecticut will join the other states in passing state voting rights acts. We need Congress to step up and guarantee the right to vote nationally. But unfortunately, thanks to the filibuster, and that we have not been able to move forward with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act in Washington. And that's a travesty, it's outrageous. But until that happens, we have an extra job to do on the state level, which is we have to pass voting rights acts to make sure that a vote in Hamden counts just as much as a vote in New Haven, and a vote in Bridgeport, and a vote in Brooklyn, Connecticut, and a vote in Greenwich. You know, the idea that there are some communities that have long lines and some communities that don't. There are some communities that have the resources to invest in their democracy and some that choose not to. And until we can look at every person in the state and say, we will guarantee you the right to vote without regard to your race, your ethnicity, your zip code, whether you have a Democratic mayor that believes in democracy or a Republican town council that does not. That shouldn't matter, right? We don't have one state if we don't have one consistent system of elections all across the state, and we've got to build it. And so I'm hoping we'll be able to move forward with that this year. You know, it's tough right now. We have to go up against some very powerful special interests in Hartford. And last year, working with George and Marty and our House colleagues, I led the fight to give every Connecticut resident public option health care. The idea that you all, that every small business in Hamden should have the right to purchase the same health insurance that I have. You know, I know how important it is. Lots of young people roll the dice. They go without access to health care. I got lucky, right? I got diagnosed with cancer at the age of 29, and thank God I had health insurance. But we have some really powerful special interests arrayed against us. We've got the most powerful special interest in the state of Connecticut that's been fighting against that. And we didn't win last year. We got our clocks claimed. But we're going to have to go at it again and again and again until we get health care available for everyone in the state. But we're never going to win unless we have a functioning democracy, right? And that's why who the Secretary of State is so important. On day one next year, right, when the next Secretary of State gets sworn in, they're going to have to deal with how to make sure that Connecticut is one of those states that closes that loophole, that everyone in this state is going to be able to cast a ballot through early voting, that we're not one of just 5 states that doesn't have early voting. It is outrageous, right? Chris Murphy goes down to Washington and he tells the story much better than I can. He goes to Washington and he's on the floor of the U.S. Senate arguing for the Freedom to Vote Act to make sure that we're going to create a nationwide standard for voting rights. And you get some Republican, right-wing Republican from the Deep South, like laughing at it. Who are you, Chris Murphy, to lecture us on voting rights when you're from Connecticut, a state with 0 days of early voting? And they got a point, right? It is embarrassing that we have a system that is so antiquated. So we've got to modernize it. We've got a lot of work to do. We've got to make sure that we have one system of elections. We had a huge expansion of voting during the 2020 election and the municipal election last fall. Now with absentee ballot drop boxes in Hamden and every community in the state. But you know what? Last November, that law expired. Yeah. So we go now into we have municipal referendums this year. We're going to have a state election this fall. We may have a primary this summer. And the old rules apply, right? We have to extend that law. And I'm grateful for Senator Looney that he said that that's going to be a priority of the Senate Democratic Caucus going forward. We're going to make sure that that happens. But we've got a lot of work to do. Because Connecticut, unfortunately, is not where we need to be. You know, when Denise Merrill announced that she was going to run 4 years ago for re-election, I don't know what she thought she was going to be getting herself into. You know, for a long time, we thought of voting of our election system as being a quiet backwater. It's an administrative job where we have to make it work, but it's not really where the action is. But in the last 4 years, we've had to deal with Russian interference in an attack on our voter registration database. We've had to deal with a pandemic, keeping people safe and allowing people access to the polls. And we've had to deal with this new question of what the heck do we do when there's a candidate for the highest office in the land who just refuses to accept the outcome of the election? There's really a lot of work ahead of us. And I don't have a brilliant answer. I just know that it's important. I know we gotta get to work. Now, all of the folks you're hearing from tonight, and there are all good candidates, and we all agree on more than we disagree. But we're all working to build the support that we need for a statewide run. And to do that, we need financial support. We need contributions, whether it's $5 or $100 or whatever you guys can afford, because we all have to raise $86,400 to qualify for public financing. I'm proud to say that I'm almost there. I've gotten most of the way there, but all of us have to get there. And if you like to, I'm sure you could talk to all of us, and the folks on the screen could also put their information in the chat. But help us all, right? Support all of us. This is about supporting democracy. We've got a public financing system in Connecticut that allows all candidates for office to reject special interests and to have a citizen-powered democracy. So with that, I would like to join everybody else in welcoming questions. I want to apologize for being a few minutes late. I was at 2 other DTCs. We got to run, cover a lot of territory in this line of work, and I just really appreciate the opportunity. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next up, we're going to go to Zoom and hear from Representative Stephanie Thomas.
Hi, Sean. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry I can't be there in person. I am still sitting in my office in Hartford because I had a paid family leave act event that I was doing tonight, but I'm sure many great people are there. I wish I could see you. I'm gonna switch things up because it's been a long night, I'm sure for you as well. And I heard a lot of my colleagues speak about democracy being on the brink. And I think we can all agree that we are definitely on the brink of something. And I don't think this is new. This is not a Donald Trump problem, although he created a narrative about election fraud. This is a problem that has gone on for hundreds of years, basically, in terms of systemic racism. When I think about people in my family, racism has had a chilling effect on voter turnout because some people in my family feel that their voice doesn't matter, their voice doesn't count. This is a problem of our education system where civics have been stripped from the schools. A lot of people talk about how the older generation always votes. Well, no magic bullet because of their age, it's because they were taught civics. This is a problem of just distrusting government, like people have alluded to earlier. That's a byproduct of big money in elections and many other things. So this place that we've gotten to where insurgents storm the Capitol is just as bad as some of the other issues, I think, such as I've been driving around the state, going to coffee shops and libraries and giving people civics quiz just to see where Connecticut stands. And to a person, most people get the questions wrong, but to a person, they also always say, I can't remember the last time anyone taught me anything about civics. All of these are the same problem. It's the thing that leads us to having, 28% turnout in a municipal election. And we think that's good. Or,
right.
If we get to 33, prior to Donald Trump, federal elections, we're talking 60, 62% turnout. None of this is good enough for me, and it's why I'm running for Secretary of State. I think civic education and civic engagement has fallen between the cracks because no one's responsible for it. And I believe that the next secretary, has an opportunity to chart a new path and make that one of the major pillars of what that office does. Because we are on a slippery slope. And again, as someone else said, no change is possible that does not first pass through the ballot box. And if we do not have people coming out to vote, it won't matter how many people are registered, how much voter access we afford them. if they're not willing to engage in our democracy. So that's one thing that I think is very important for the next secretary. The other thing I would love to do is serve as an ambassador, and that is part of the same thing for fostering engagement. You can have people registered, but you can't force them to vote. I think you have to inspire them to vote. And I think you do that by meeting them where they are versus having them come to you. And I think that's also true for the other populations that interacts with the Secretary's office. I would definitely set up a listening tour, spend much of my time out in the field so that I could communicate directly with town clerks, registrars, chambers of commerce, small business development centers, and yes, the voters via community groups. And the secretary definitely has an opportunity to be a convener to make sure that those people are heard. What I hear most often, I happen to be vice chair of the Government Administration and Elections Committee right now, and what I hear a lot of is no more unfunded mandates. My legislative colleagues will cringe when they hear that, but it's not, it's true sometimes, you know. Registrars talk about something that we sit in Hartford and pass with the best of intentions, but they do not have the training, the money, etc., to roll it out. So we need to hear straight from the people closest to the problem. And Hamden is so progressive, and I love it. And, you know, people like you helped us have a banner year last year. We passed so much voting reform. We were able to get the constitutional amendment for early voting on the ballot, restore parolee voting rights, implement automatic voter registration, one of the bills I introduced. But we passed all that stuff. Part of the secretary's job, the progressive part is done, and now it's just time for that minutia, organizational development, behind the scenes wonkiness. It's not sexy to talk about on the campaign trail, but it's the job that needs to get done. For example, we passed automatic voter registration. I see Taryn there. We emailed so many times last year trying to get that over the finish line, and it passed. But guess what? It will take probably 5 years to roll out on the current schedule. That's not good enough. We need to pay attention to these types of process issues. Someone needs to work with these agencies to make sure they understand how important it is that they come online. And there's a lot of tech work behind the scenes to make sure that happens. Early voting. I spend all of my spare time, literally, promoting early voting and also Friday's public hearing on no excuse absentee ballots. I sent an email to about 2,000 people just on Monday, alerting them about the public hearing, making sure that everyone is fighting to get the constitutional amendment passed and that we can have no excuse early voting. But assuming we achieve that in November, the next secretary is going to have to do a lot of behind-the-scenes work to make some recommendations, have a lot of frank conversations with the registrars about what is possible. Many of you may know Secretary Merrill had proposed a 3-day window for early voting when last she testified on it a couple of years ago, mainly because of the infrastructure and the way all of this is decentralized in Connecticut, and you have 169 towns, some of them with very part-time registrars. So we have to, you know, I know I see Josh, and I know Josh is like, let's have it like 8 years of early voting. No, but like 30 days, 40 days, I think is what you said. But the answer is likely in Connecticut right away to be closer to 3 to 5 days, just based on our infrastructure. Another thing we passed is a study group looking at how we audit our elections. Very important. And that study group came back saying, we need to implement risk limiting audits. That is something that will take a lot of time and effort, and the next secretary has to focus on that. And there are many things like that, not sexy, not exciting, and yes, we have to protect voting rights as well. But I am running for this job because I am passionate about all of it, in front of the camera and behind the scenes. And why can I do it? I've had a very interesting background. I like to say I grew up very poor in a rich town, so I had great education, but sometimes no food or electricity. So doing homework by candlelight, definitely very interesting growing up. And, you know, most of my friends, their high school jobs weren't going toward paying the rent. I got a scholarship and worked full time, went to NYU, graduated on the dean's list. And in my first job out of undergrad, I started working at a nonprofit. And that's where I determined that sort of the public good and public service was what I was passionate about. So I went on and got my master's in nonprofit management, which is like an MBA if you're going to go into the nonprofit sector. And I started working for a consulting company while I was in grad school as an intern, ended up becoming its president. Years later, I have since started my own company. So no stranger to building teams, managing teams, and creating something from nothing and making sure that it's successful. And all of my work is in or for the nonprofit sector, which has taught me a lot about transparency, accountability, making sure when you're a fundraiser, if you don't tell the truth, donors can spot a lie like anything. And if you are not effective in delivering whatever it is they are investing in, they won't fund you again. So these lessons have stood me in good stead over time. And I also have worked for 25 years as a consultant, again, a fundraising strategy consultant, which has taught me, it's very second nature to me now, to just walk in, analyze a problem, and solve it, because I don't get paid unless I solve a problem. And I can go on, but I won't. But I'm happy to be here today. As Senator Lesser said, a lot of great candidates. We are all, trying to make the state better, and we can all use public campaign finance support. I'll put my info in the chat, and happy to join my colleagues in answering questions. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And our last candidate of the night is someone a couple of you might know, Representative Josh Elliott.
Howdy. So I already talked to you guys about my candidacy, but I'm happy to talk about other things since I am still your state rep. So where we are in session right now is we just had a meeting with chairs today, and you of course have the have Representative Porter, Representative D'Agostino, who are both chairs, and Linehan is a chair. So we were all there, and basically we're talking about how quickly this session is going to go by. Many of our committees have a deadline to get bills out over the next couple to few weeks, and we're probably going to have something like, Robin, do you remember, was it like five or six session days? Like something appallingly short, right? Am I making this up?
No, it was about 8 to 11.
Okay. We don't have a lot of time to get bills out. And so leadership was basically like, you gotta jam all of your stuff into one huge bill, because that's what the Senate wants to do. Either way, we're feeling a time crunch. We got about 35 bills coming out of higher ed. The things that I'm working on that are probably gonna get over the finish line this year, which is really exciting, is the bill to ensure that there is consent when someone is going for a intimate pelvic exam under anesthesia. So something that has died historically, but now I believe we'll get there this year. I'm on that working group, which is very exciting. another bill to ensure that there are menstrual products in public spaces. So it had started out as being simply schools, but now it's K through 12 we're talking about. We're talking about colleges, we're talking about prisons, and we're talking about municipal buildings. And we have an incredible working group there as well. And UConn, Stanford is actually going to be doing a pilot program to ensure that this gets there as well. Again, something that has been in front of the legislature for the last couple of years, and something that I wanted to see if I could lend my weight. And it's been really fun work working on that bill. A couple of other big things that are going to be coming from the legislature that we'll see. Aid in dying got farther than it ever had last year, making it out of committee. And then it got sent to judiciary and died there. We are very aware of the direction that this will take this time around. So there's a pretty big working group. A big chunk of the freshman class is actually really on board with this. I see Mary clapping her hands. And so our goal is to see if we can get 50 Democrats to sign on this year and try to see if we can make that law. That's been one of my priorities since I got elected, and I think it's the moral thing to do for people who are in terrible shape with less than 6 months to live. And then an exciting thing about the campaign is that part of the reason that I'm in this is I get to extend the bounds of the policy conversation. So I feel that because I've been talking about ranked choice at every single DTC for the last 6 months, we are now proactively getting asked about ranked choice. Because I've been talking about how far out we should vote, saying 3 weeks to a month, which again, 7 states across the US do this. We're now getting asked how long we think. And people are starting to have to be on the record for these things. That's very, very exciting for me. No one's asked about voting for people who are incarcerated yet, but I believe that will stick. And again, my message is the same whether or not I'm in front of a progressive DTC to a small town conservative DTC. There are people that are on board the message across the state. It's been very rewarding. It's been fun seeing all my colleagues in all these places. The nice thing is we've got a really good selection of folks that are running for this seat. So no matter what happens, I know we'll be well served. And I'm happy to answer questions if you got them. I know my colleagues are on as well, but I'm very busy and I'm having a fun time. Campaign manager is coming on board in 5 days, by the way, and then I'll convert soon. So his name is Renato. He works for the legislative council in Hartford for the WFP candidates. He'll be coming on board and helping clean up some stuff that needs to get cleaned up in the campaign. So definitely looking forward to offload some of that campaign manager work that I've been bearing for the past 6 months. And that is it. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. What I'm going to encourage everyone to do is if you are on Zoom, you can add some questions into the chat, ask directly of the candidates. Otherwise, we'll wrap up here before too long, and I'm going to stick around and talk to the candidates directly here to ask any questions that way. But I want to thank all of the candidates that are on Zoom and also came here in person. It is quite a slog to be going all over. The state seems like a small state until you're trying to run for statewide office. And suddenly there are an awful lot of meetings going on all the time, and they're trying to juggle that. And so I want to echo something that Senator Lesser said, that, it's better when more candidates are involved. It's a good thing. And so if you're so inclined, look into making contributions to make this campaign even stronger. So I'm sure you can find information online, but our DTC also will send out contact information for campaigns that we get. We'll make sure we send it out to our whole membership, and any information they want us to pass along, we'll make sure we pass it along to all of you, because the last thing we ever want to do is act as gatekeepers. We want each of you to be able to make your own informed decisions about who to support in this very important race. So again, thank you to all the candidates for coming out here. All right, so now I'd like to hear from our delegation that has been, first I just want to recognize, we have Eric Russell here as Vice Chair of our party. Thank you for coming. And I'd love to hear from our delegation, and just because of the complexities of this, I'm actually I'll pop up to Zoom first, just to kind of get this done. So if Robin or Mary, I'm not sure if anyone else, if I missed anyone, because I haven't been looking on my computer over there, but if would either of you like to give an update or say hi?
I'm happy to say hello, but I will defer to Representative first. Thank you, Representative Melander. Hello, everyone. Good evening. Well into the evening, almost 9 o'clock into the evening. First, my apologies for not being present, but I just got in from Hartford not too long ago, and I am actually on the mend from COVID. I don't know how many of you know that, but I did get bit by that bug, and I'm just really trying to walk that line. I've been warned by a lot of people about this long haulers, and if any of you know me, I don't know when to sit down, so I am struggling with that, and I'm being chastised by a lot of people who saw me at the Capitol today, and continuing to do the work. But it's my passion for people and my love for this community, this whole wide community, that keeps me going. So just keep me in your prayers. Labor, we're lofty every single year, and this year is no different. We got a lot of things going on, over 40 bills we've raised out of committee. And as Josh said, we've already been warned that a lot of that probably won't get done this year, but a lot of it is bills from last year. And a lot of it is COVID related, because as much as we want to think we've come a long way, and we have, in this pandemic, people are still suffering in ways that many of us can't imagine, because it just hasn't touched us that way. And it was pre-COVID, and it has only exacerbated the things that people are going through. So we're looking to expand paid sick days. If people are sick, they need to be able to stay home, and they need to be able to get paid. And they don't need to have to make that choice of going to work sick and putting everyone else in jeopardy, including their family members. We're talking about one that's really important to Senator Looney. It's actually a Senate bill, but the captive audience bill is something that we're bringing back and hoping to get that done this year. And I really am pressing on that because of what we're seeing happening currently in real time with Starbucks and the awful union busting tactics that they're using, with captive audience being one at the center of what they're doing. I also think that a lot of the things that we're looking at as far as guaranteeing people's stability and sustainability is the Fair Work Week bill. This is another bill that we're bringing back from last year. I don't know exactly why we didn't get off the finish line. We should have. I'm hoping that this will get done this year. And this is to address, people have a predictability in scheduling, which is only fair when a lot of people are having to deal with working 2, 3, 4, 5 jobs, if you believe it or not. And being able to have childcare, being able to make appointments, being able to do the things that we all take for granted. I think low-wage workers have gotten hit the hardest, but middle-class workers as well have felt the brunt of this in ways they've never experienced. And I just think that we got to put workers first. We got to build that foundation from the ground up, and we've got to lift from the bottom up. And when we do that, everyone gets elevated. We're talking about inflation and things of that nature. We have unemployment, overpayments that we're dealing with constituents, so we're working closely with DOL. I've been on the phone with our federal US DOL to figure out how we relieve people of the burden of having to pay back money that they didn't even ask for. That's why I'm struggling with this, because the extra $600 a week, the extra $300 a week did not make anyone rich. It was disposable income. It was very much needed income. And to be perfectly honest and to keep it 100, the feds had to do that in order to keep the economy running. So I don't think that we should be punishing people for taking advantage of actually being able to make more sitting at home than they are going to work for an honest day. I think that's something we need to be looking into. I think it's shameful that people were able to stay home and collect unemployment, and the federal government was able to assist them and keep the economy afloat when they should be able to do that for people every single day, 365 days a year. God, there's a lot of stuff. And I think I did mention that we wanted to expand the paid sick time, but we also want to look at ways in which we're not hurting business, we're helping business. And I think if we take care of the workers and provide them with what they need, we'll be able to do that. And I'll quickly wrap up with this because I could go through all the bills, but I won't. We keep hearing about a worker shortage. There's no worker shortage. There's a wage shortage. There's a child care shortage. There's a health care shortage. There's a lot of shortages, but I promise you workers are not the issue. And inflation, I believe that, corporate greed is driving that. I believe that they're taking advantage of, the pandemic and what it's doing. And I don't think that it's fair that we continue to allow them to do that. It's market power, it's monopolies, and we need to pull that back. So I'm working with the BPRC as well as the General Assembly. I'm hoping that everyone can get on board to help address the labor issues that can absolutely be fixed. And I hate to say it, but I think a fifth grader can do a better job than a lot of politicians have done up to this point. And it's going to take courage. It's going to take a backbone. It's going to take us putting our money where our mouth is. And I can speak for Hamden and New Haven. We have not seen the federal funds that have inundated this state to the extreme. We haven't seen it on the ground. And we have to follow the money. We have to follow the dollars. And I'm excited at this progressive DTC that is currently seated in Hamden. And I'm looking forward to full support coming out of Hamden to keep that progression moving forward. And if you guys have any questions, I'm willing to take them. And if not, I look forward to being with you guys in person soon. Thank you. And thank you, Sean. And congratulations to all of you for your nominations tonight.
Thank you, Robin. We hope you're feeling all right. And so a word about fundraising again. Some of our, amazing delegation here, including Robin, we still got to get them over the finish line so they can qualify for the CEP grant. We're going to make sure we get that information out to you again, so you have it. Every donation matters for our delegation. Even a $5 contribution matters. Do as much as you can, but every bit helps to get them over that line. I believe that Mary is done with her fundraising, but Liz Linehan is still fundraising. Josh is still fundraising. I believe both Senator Looney and Senator Cabrera are still fundraising as well. So you can spread it around a bit and help them out. That's a big part of what we do here is support our candidates to get to make sure.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you. And it would be remiss of me not to mention that my treasurer is absolutely in your midst, Rhonda Caldwell. So if you want to see her, she is in the building, y'all. Thank you.
The treasurer for the people.
Nice. All right, Mary, would you like to say a few words?
Thank you so much. And again, congratulations to everyone, the new delegation or the new leaders of the DTC. For people who I haven't met, my name is Mary Wielander. I am serving my first term as a state representative. My new district, if I win re-election, if I'm lucky enough, will be including Hamden currently, or a section of Hamden, small part. I currently represent Orange, Derby, and Woodbridge, and I'm looking forward to joining this amazing delegation. I am finished with my fundraising. I'm very grateful and thankful for all the support I got from the Hamden community. And I will be very, very quick. My main focus this session is on, again, on children's safety. I serve as vice chair of the Children's Committee, and one of our main focuses is the Speaker's Bill of 5001, which is a transformative and an absolutely landmark bill looking at creating better access to mental and behavioral health for children and families across the state. It's 100+ pages long. It's jam-packed, still being revised, but it is an absolute honor to really be part of working and crafting that legislation. So I'm very excited about that. I'm happy to talk with anyone about details about that at any point offline. My other personal goal is looking at creating safer spaces for our kids online. We are looking at an explosion of grooming behaviors and exploitation of children. And so I'm working with the Judiciary Committee to create safer and more strict guidelines and statutes regarding the grooming and exploitation and abuse intent behind some of the actions that these people adults are doing to our children. And as a two-pronged approach to that, I'm also creating a task force that will hopefully go through the Children's Committee all the way to identify the prevalence of this type of abuse, online abuse and exploitation across the state, and why, where it's happening, how it's happening, if it's being prosecuted, and if it isn't, why. So we can identify exactly what the process is and the solutions to fix it. So that is a big priority. I think this is something that is it's a new world out there, and our kids are navigating it with a lot of bad actors, and so we want to try to make that as safe a space as possible. And the other thing that is a little bit different is going through the Veterans Committee. For those who don't know, I have 3 younger brothers. All 3 are combat veterans. One is still in, hopefully retiring soon. But I am hoping to create a reimbursement program that would allow veterans who are entering the trades program to apply for reimbursement of licensure fees and also get a small credit for their tuition costs that for those programs. So I'm happy to have a conversation with anyone at any time, and I look forward to meeting you in person. I'm sorry I couldn't be there tonight. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Representative Helander. And is Senator Ludi, no, he's done, okay, yeah, don't blame him. So Senator Cabrera, and before Senator Cabrera speaks, I just want to say that he is looking for a volunteer or 2 to help with data entry, to help out his treasurer with a little data entry. It would not be a long-term thing. It's, once he qualifies for the grant, it should be good to go after that. But over this little busy period now, if there's anyone that would be willing to help out with a little data entry, either you can let me know or let Senator Cabrera know.
Yep, thank you, Sean. Good evening, everyone. Good to see everybody. First, congratulations to everyone. Congratulations, Sean, and the entire team for being elected tonight. You guys really inspire me. What you have done here in Hamden is nothing short of incredible. And as we see democracy threatened all around the world, it is really heartwarming and inspiring to see that in Hamden, democracy is alive and well. And the work you guys do has so many impacts on all of us. I'll touch on very, very briefly because I know it's been a long night, it's been a long day. A lot of the things that my colleagues have mentioned, we're also working on. I serve on labor, as you know, Representative Porter, and actually, Mary, I just signed that bill this today, the Veterans Bill, licensure. So we're going to have a hearing on that very soon, next week, as a matter of fact. I'll focus on a couple of big things. I think that we're at a unique moment in Connecticut and in the country. I think that the federal dollars we're getting are incredible. I think transformational. I was just on the phone this afternoon with Mayor Garrett, talking about some bonding requests that we're going to be putting in for the firehouse on Circle Avenue, as well as the Keefe Center.
Yay!
And we're going to be working on a couple of other bonding requests. We want to make sure we have everything we need. But I'm also a little concerned because I think that once this federal dollars runs through our system, we're going to be dealing with the same structural deficits that we've had in Connecticut for a very, very long time. So there's 2 really big things I'm really focused on. One is the companion bill, which Mary mentioned, 5001 on the House side, SB2, is a massive mental health bill that we're working on because, as you all know, and as I've heard from so many people, it's touched my family. I'm sure it's touched many families here. The mental health issues with our young people are through the roof. They're at historic levels of depression and anxiety and suicide. And we are going to do a very large bill on this to make sure that our kids have the social workers they need, the school-based mental health clinics, make sure that our social workers are paid a living wage. These are all things we're going to be fighting for this year in this bill. The second is I serve on the Finance Revenue and Bonding Commission. We're going to be doing a series of tax packages that we're hoping to bring to the floor to finally make sure that those at the very top pay their fair share of taxes in the state of Connecticut. Also working on a child tax credit. I know Representative Scallon's been championing this for a long, long time. We all know what an impact that federal tax credit had on our families. It was a game changer. A lot of families were lifted out of poverty. In fact, millions of children were lifted out of poverty. Unfortunately, that expired and doesn't look like there's much hope in Washington with Senator Manchin and Sinema standing in the way. In Connecticut, we have a chance to change that and do a state-based child tax credit that really changes families' lives. We can do this. We are in a very strong financial position in the state. We have record surpluses. Our rainy day fund, our savings account is at an all-time high. It's actually over that. We have balanced budgets. We have the money to do this. But unless we tackle the structural deficits, quite frankly, in 3, 4, or 5 years, we're going to be having the same conversation we had before this pandemic and looking at austerity budgets. I don't want that. I know you don't want that. That's something that I'm really going to be focusing on this session to see if we can get some meaningful tax reform. It's always a pleasure serving you guys. And as Sean mentioned, if anyone can help with some light data entry, that'd be great. Thank you to all of you who came out to our fundraiser last Saturday. It was a great success. A little bit over halfway there. Got about another half to go. Any help that you can provide, if you haven't donated again, I'd be happy to give you the link. Any bit helps. We do this because we care about our towns, we care about our citizens, and this citizens election program really gives us the freedom to not be beholden to large corporate and special interest money. It's a godsend. I knew I wouldn't be here without the program, and if you guys can help in any way, I really would appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me this evening, and I'm so happy that all of you are elected again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on the campaign trail. So, thanks.
All right. And now our State Central representative, Jen Pope, has what I'm told will be a very brief update.
Sorry guys, I'm sick tonight, so I'm going to be brief because it's late and also because I don't feel very well. I just wanted to give you guys an update that we received our delegate counts for the state convention. 6th and 7th. I'm going to send you updates for when all of the conventions are going to be. I'll send them by email instead of just listing them all out here. So Hamden gets 43 delegates. We're the 8th highest delegate count in the state. So that means that we're very important to the statewide candidates. As you can see by them all showing up tonight to talk to all of you. And for the new folks who maybe don't know who I am yet, so I'm your state central delegate for the 11th district. I'm one of 2 delegates for the 11th. I'm your conduit between the Hamden DTC and the state party. So if you have any questions about conventions right now, the hot topic of the moment, you can reach out to me. I'm happy to find out the answers or get more information for you. Or anything related to the state party or how we work together, I'm happy to answer those questions for you. So, congrats.
Thank you so much, Jen, and we will be sending out that information about conventions. Anything, and Jen does great updates that she sends out by email, but also we'll send those updates out as well. Before we move to, if anyone has anything else, otherwise we can take a motion to adjourn. I know it's been a long meeting, but before we do that, before we get a second, I just mentioned that some of us are going to hop over to Playwright and have some food or whatever. And so if anyone's interested in stopping by, come on by with us. So we have a motion. Do we got a second?
Second.
Second.